The NHL season is in full swing, and the Washington Capitals are in the second wildcard spot in the East with a record of 11-9-1. Our District Wire sports correspondent Kelly Ferris joins us live in the studio with more. Kelly?
Coming off back-to-back seasons of winning the President's Trophy, we are about a quarter of a way through the Washington Capitals season, and the team sits in 5th place in the Metropolitan Division. To break down what all of this means, I am joined by Capitals reporter for the Washington Post, Isabel Kershudian. Thank you for being here today.
Thanks for having me.
So the Capitals are coming off a win this weekend with the Minnesota Wild, but they suffered a couple tough losses last week to the Avalanche and the Predators. So what can we expect tonight against Calgary?
Yeah, I think it's a good test for them. You know, they lost against the Flames the first time they played them, and I think, you know, the Caps, we've seen flashes of a pretty good team, flashes of a really bad team. They've been kind of all over the place, so if they can start to put, you know, a couple wins together in a row, I think that'd be a big step for them, especially with, you know, the standings so tight.
So the fans have been a little spoiled. We've had two really good regular season teams the last couple of years. Should we be worried about making the playoffs this year?
No, I don't think so. Usually the marker is Thanksgiving. 80% of the teams who are in a playoff spot at Thanksgiving time will make the playoffs. So they're in the right position. Like I said, the standings are really, really tight, where I think if the Caps won tonight, then they'll be right back kind of in first place, maybe tied for first place. So, you know, it seems like the league overall, teams aren't that, it's kind of a live parity and everybody's kind of middling record kind of thing. So, you know, if you can just keep from sliding too far, losing too many games in a row, then you're probably fine.
Cool. So we've had a couple standout teams in the league this year that I think people weren't expecting to be as good as they are. How do you see the rest of the season going, and who do you think has a real shot at the Stanley Cup?
Yeah, I think everyone kind of thought, like Tampa Bay especially, after the injuries they had last year, if they have a healthy team, they are really, really good, and they seem to be kind of the big standout, I would say. And after that, I think Los Angeles was kind of a surprise. They didn't really make that many changes other than coaching staff. It's pretty much the same roster kind of coming back. So that was a little bit more surprising that, you know, they've gotten off to such a good start. St. Louis Blues in the West are also really good. The Golden Knights are a huge surprise in their first season in Las Vegas. But I think it's so wide open this year. Because you had the expansion draft in the summer, because the salary cap didn't go up that much, it just seems like everybody's pretty much on an even playing field outside of maybe 1, 2, or 3 teams.
Cool. So back to the Caps, we've got TJ Oshie's on his first year of his new 8-year contract, and he's kind of on track to have another career record-setting year. What does a player like that bring to a team like the Capitals, who have kind of been having a slower start to their season this year?
Yeah, part of the reason they re-signed him to that big contract, they, you know, really wanted to bring him back, was because he is such a high-energy, charismatic guy in the locker room, that he's always very upbeat, I guess, and that's hard to do when you have an 82-game season. And you know, sometimes it's natural to just come in and not be in a great mood or be a little tired one day. And he's always kind of lifting them up, and he's also obviously performing really well on the ice. So it's the combo of those two things, kind of having a high energy guy to kind of bring that on the ice and also in the locker room. And when you do have a season that's a little bit rockier, you need that kind of positivity, I think.
And then the Capitals also have a couple newer guys, Nathan Walker being one of them. Like, how do you think those guys getting ice time has impacted them, and what role do they play this year for the Capitals? Yeah,
Nathan was a great story at the start of the year, first Australian hockey player. He hasn't been in the lineup as much lately. I think they've kind of settled into a rhythm where they have, you know, the rookie defensemen back there, I think, are the big two new faces, Madison Bowey and Christian Djoos. And then up front, you know, in the forward courts, Devontae Smith-Pelly is playing, you know, with Ovechkin and Kuznetsov, like in a top line role. I don't think any of us expected that to start the year. You've got Alex Chiasson, who's kind of new in there. You know, Jacob Verana, who's a rookie, who's settling into kind of a third line role. So there are some new people, but I think, you know, 20 games in, you should start to see this team get comfortable. This is when we kind of find out who they are. The adjustment period should be about over right now.
Cool. So shifting gears just a little bit, you're obviously a reporter for the Washington Post, and there's now 4 women who also are covering local DC sports for the Post. Can you talk a little bit about what that's like to work on an all-female team in that sports world?
Yeah, it's great. You have a lot of support. Candace Buckner covers the Wizards, so our seasons are kind of concurrent, I guess. So a lot of times, like, I'll call her for advice, or Liz Clark is kind of the veteran of us women, and if I ever really need some guidance, like, I know I can reach out to her, and she would absolutely kind of understand or give me some wisdom. So it is a lot of fun. I'm really proud of it when you look at our sports staff and you see the diversity, even with the men that we have there, who are incredibly supportive and really talented too. So I think it's great. I think it's a great picture of a diverse staff, and that can bring different perspectives on any subject, that you don't have just kind of one viewpoint from the prototypical white male. You have a lot of different ones, which is good.
So any challenges in terms of, as a hockey reporter, hockey's a very male-dominated sport. Like the NHL is made up of men. So what are the challenges in terms of being a female covering that type of sport?
Yeah, I think it's like with anything where you have this battle for credibility sometimes, that, I think it's when you make a mistake, it sort of looks like, oh, she made that mistake because she's a woman and she doesn't know anything about the sport, where maybe I just made a simple mistake because I made a mistake and I'm human. I think you sort of have to work harder to build up a reputation that you know what you're talking about. And I think it's the same with most sports. I felt like that, where people are sort of hesitant to sometimes buy into you being this authoritative voice on the team you're covering.
Cool. And then obviously a lot of times we hear about these like fan powerhouse sections at like Chicago or Philadelphia, the Rangers. How do DC sports fans stack up to that? The atmosphere is a little bit different when you walk into Capital One Arena than some of those other places. How do you feel about the fan section in DC and this year in particular and compared to previous years?
Yeah, I think the interest is a little bit down this year just because the team is struggling a little bit. But I will say you see a really good turnout on the road, especially. I know in New York, there's the New York Caps crew. I think that's what they're called. And you can hear them depending on some rinks that you're in. They're really loud. They have chants of their own. In Colorado, I thought there were more Caps fans there than Avalanche fans. Carolina, you'll see a lot of Caps jerseys. So I think the loyal fans are still loyal, even though the team has struggled a little bit, but certainly I think right now it's hard for fans to get really excited about the team because it's another regular season. They're a little worn out by having these great regular seasons and then struggling in the playoffs. But once the team makes the playoffs or gets in, or we're in the playoffs, whatever, you'll see Verizon Center rocking just like probably it always is.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us. That's all we have time for. This was Isabel, and back to you guys in the studio.
The college football season is wrapping up with conference title games fast approaching. Our District Wire sports correspondent Neil Patrick will have that when we return.